Rock Solid Radio wants to thank Maxwell Construction, who has been our sponsor since the very beginning. For over 30 years, Maxwell has delivered the highest quality projects by holding to their core values of customer satisfaction, positive attitude, respect, and excellence. So if you have any kind of commercial construction need, give Maxwell Construction a call today at 812-537-2200.
Welcome to Rock Solid Radio. This is Merle Hutchinson, and I'm here with the one and only, my sweet honey, Linda Hutchinson. How are you today, Linda?
I'm doing good. October was a crazy tough month.
It was.
I'm glad to turn the page into the November month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think just for the sake of our conversation, I mentioned a little bit of this on Strong Dads, just because it was fresh on my mind. But one big reason that October was difficult is your mom passed away. And on October 17th, I believe the date was, right?
Yeah. It's been a busy, crazy couple weeks, few weeks. It's still pretty raw and fresh. But I'm so thankful that we had the bonus time that we did with my mom. You know, a lot of people don't know my mom's story, but almost 7 years ago, my mom was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer, and she was given a year. And that was almost 7 years ago.
Yeah. Well, we know that because we were visiting our older son and daughter-in-law and just found out that she was pregnant.
Yeah.
Right?
No, she wasn't pregnant. We actually were visiting when they just had the baby.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
They just had the baby, and we just found out that mom had cancer. And so, honestly, like I remember soon after that, we found out it was 6 months to a year because of the aggressiveness. Yeah. And we got obviously 7 years down the road. And, I think lots of different things recycled over that 7 years because you just never quite knew. Initially, it was, well, what do we do? And then treatments started. You want to go through some of that a little bit? Because I think that was...
you think about it, we heard the news. I would literally remember being in a Virginia airport, flying home from meeting our new first granddaughter, Lucy. And that was in January of 2016. And that was when we heard the news. And I remember thinking, she's never going to know her great-grandmother. Lucy's never going to get to really know my mom. And so in God's perfect timing and God's great glory, he not only let her get to meet Lucy, but 4 other great-grandchildren as well. So, that's where I feel like we did get that bonus time where we could live that life of no regrets, what we're going to talk about today, because we kind of got that timeline and we had to start deciding, like, how are we going to live our life? Are we going to waste the time that we do have, or are we going to take advantage of it and live that life to the fullest?
Yeah. So, multiple treatments and chemo and autoimmune. And man, she got on a great run with the autoimmune, and that really bought her so much time. And like you said, I think the coolest thing was she had that opportunity to get a lot of her life in order. And we don't know what all that looks like, right? We don't know her personal relationship with Jesus and all of those things.
She knew Jesus.
Well, yeah, but I mean, as far as like how much she was talking to him and just trying to settle a lot of things, because I think a lot of us, just take it for granted that you call yourself a Christian, but that doesn't mean that you've got everything right in your mind. And so she had some of that time to do that. So anyway, we are going to talk today about a life of no regrets, right? Making sure that the things that are happening in your life, that you're processing those, and then you're trying to make good out of whatever it is that's happening. So, and that is just a small example with your mom that we have.
And here's the deal, you can't take anything with you. So if you're focusing your life and your time and your energy on the bigger house, or maybe a new spouse because the old one's not making you happy, you're going to find yourself coming up short and feeling empty. And so we're really talking about how do we live a life of no regrets in our relationships, because that's really what brings us joy and peace. And so that's really what we're going to be focusing on today.
All right. Let's thank our sponsors.
Yes.
We want to thank KC Outdoor Solutions and Maxwell Construction for being sponsors of the Rock Solid Radio program. And so we want to thank those guys. So if you get an opportunity and you do any business with either of those companies, please tell them thank you for just their support of getting these types of messages out and helping this ministry. So, all right, a couple of things that we just always want to put out there. Most of the time, people are coming into Rock Solid Families because there are either regretful situations that have happened in life, or they're in the process of something that they're trying to prevent great regret. And so, you know, part of this show is the idea, not this show, but Rock Solid Radio and Strong Dads, is you and I want to we have a desire to get on the front end of regrets.
Yeah, exactly.
Rather than the
Before
back
they become
end.
regrets, yeah.
And so if there's anything that we can do, whether it's sharing these shows, whether you guys would share the shows, if you need your some help personally in a relationship or an individual matter, reach out to us at 812-576-7625, or you can go to our website, rocksolidfamilies.org, and check out our resources there, because you know there's a lot of things here. Your parents spent a lot of time raising you to help you get on the right track, but no, you know, everybody gets pulled off the track at times, and trying to prevent some of those regrets is helpful.
I just was talking about that recently with a client. Like, we all go into this drift mode, right? That we kind of get off course or kind of stray or fade. And so we've got to make sure we've got these guardrails up that protect us from going way off course, right? And keep us kind of in line. And one of the ways that we believe that we can help couples is our online coaching program called Rock Solid Marriage. And so if you can get online to rocksolidfamilies.org to take a look at some of the details of that, we believe that's one of the ways we prevent drift and regrets.
Yeah.
And so tell them a little bit about what that program involves.
Yeah, so we basically use the metaphor of building a house. And the reason why we did that is because if you ever built a house and gone through that process, it's not really a turnkey operation where you show up at the very end and you walk in and you go, yay, it's great, okay? And so a marriage needs to be really starting on a base foundation. And even prior to the foundation, there has to be some talking, some dreaming, some values. You know, what do we want the house, or in this case, what do we want the marriage to look like? And so Rock Solid Marriages does not leave any stone uncovered in that area. We actually start with talking about assessing what kind of marriage you want, what kind of values, and then we talk about dreaming, okay, like, well, what would it look like, this marriage? Because way too often we make assumptions. We make assumptions that our spouse believes like we do, or has the same vision for a future in this marriage that we do. And so we go back and we go, well, let's actually see. And so we walk through that process of dreaming, of building foundations, of then actually erecting something that's going to be withstanding the storms of life. And I think that's the critical part. No home's going to be stormless. Our deal is you're going to have the storms. So how are you going to make sure that your marriage is fortified and healthy to get through those?
That makes me think of the deck that we just spent a lot of money in redoing. But it was so funny because when we were assessing the quality and the status of our current deck, which was really very rocky and very shaky, we had to decide, are we going to go start at square one? Are we going to start with the bare bones of the posts and the, whatever you call that, the beams and
the joist.
Like, are we going to just put a new decking on top of the old stuff? And I remember you saying like, oh, I just don't think that's a wise idea, because I feel like we'll have some regrets.
Yep.
Like, we're building on something that's not really foundationally strong. And so we might put all this money on the top, but the bottom is pretty shaky.
Yeah. And I mean, let's just be reminded, as you're talking about that, when that deck was built, it was built well. Okay. But 17 years of neglect and use and living have wore it down.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't a matter of it not being right at the beginning,
Right.
but over time things kind of break down, and just through neglect and that sort of thing and wear, you've got to decide what you're going to do. And so, we literally did take down
one.
all of the posts and start brand new because, we were going to we knew a considerable amount of money, and if we were going to put them on old posts, they already had 17 years of wear on them.
Yeah.
And I really did not think it was a good idea because this deck's got to outlive me. Okay,
It better.
This is outliving me. I want to be 6 feet under when this one.
So Rock
goes.
Solid Marriage has assessment tools that we use to kind of assess really the strength and the foundation of the relationship. It's got a workbook that you work through daily. It's got teaching lessons that you and your spouse will watch together and kind of do homework from. There is 5 private coaching sessions that you can do with us, one of us, either in our office in St. Leon, Indiana, or via Zoom anywhere in the country. And then there's this personal coach, you or I, walking alongside you and your spouse to really help you all along the way. And so if this show today kind of stirs up something that you do have some regrets and you do have some things you need to change, please give us a call. And like you said, we would love to help any way we can.
Yeah. All right. So very good. So, hon, let's get into the show today. All right. Yeah. So I've written stuff about no regrets in life. I actually did my very first cassette tape recordings was Living a Life No Regrets. That's the title of it was.
I forgot that.
And so this is not necessarily a new topic. So let's talk a little bit about, are you saying we should live a perfect life? Are you saying that we should never make mistakes and we should walk like little robots or tin soldiers? So what are you saying? Like, this isn't even possible.
Yeah. How do you live a life of no regrets? And so this is just one of the things that I do personally on a regular basis that has really helped me. And for some people, this is so foreign. They don't ever have this kind of conscious conversation with themselves. And so I love to lay my head down at night, and after you and I pray, we pray all the time together as a couple. I lay my head down at night and I try to answer these 2 questions. Am I okay? And are we okay? And so if there's anything that is unresolved, anything that is still like, it's got me angry, it's got a burr in my saddle, like something that happened or I haven't talked about, if there is, am I anxious? Am I depressed? Am I angry with somebody? Is there something personally I need to work on? Maybe I don't like how I'm feeling. Maybe I feel overweight or I'm not sleeping well or, whatever. And then you and I, like, are we okay? And so I just feel like if you don't do that self-assessment on a regular basis, man, like we talked about the drift, you can get drifted off so far off course that you almost turn into a train wreck because you're not becoming aware of going down that regretful life.
Yeah. So, this is starting to go back a little bit, and we have to help recognize, and we want to help teach you guys to recognize when things are okay or not okay, because way too often it's kind of sort of okay, right? And it's that sort of, it's like that middle ground that allows us to sweep it under the carpet, like it's or not worth bringing back up. Yeah, and so. How do I know? Well, remember our symptoms from when we are emotionally our needs aren't being met. We've gone through that before, the 8 essential emotional needs. And whenever one of those is not met, the result is anxiety, depression, fatigue, anger. Okay. And so these are the symptoms that you're talking about. So if I'm starting to feel like, I've been irritable, I'm getting angry, I'm depressed, that is an alarm that's going off. That's telling me that if I don't do something with this, there's likely a regret or opportunity for regret building in me in real time.
Yeah. So you mentioned, the essential 8 emotional needs. And so if you don't know what we're talking about, go back the last 3 week shows. And I think we did a great job Not putting it on my back. Yeah. I think we thoroughly talked about the fact, start with the God-shaped hole. We really talked about that being a need that can never be met by anyone else but God. And then you talked about the emotional 8 that we've got to have in our life with relationships. And then last week's show, man, wow, Josh brought it, didn't he?
Yeah.
Our special guest, Josh Barth. If you did not get a chance to listen to that show, please go back, because man, that is just a person who could have lived a life of a lot of regrets. And man, he turned those regrets into his message, his mess into his message. And God has really used him in a mighty way.
Yeah. So let's be also clear that when you start to detect that you are being anxious or depressed, okay, and you start to recognize that you can link it to something that's maybe it's something that's going on in your life or not going on in your life that you think should be. I just said this recently in a Strong Dad show, and this is not to be taken wrong, but this is to be taken with an understanding of how God actually wants us to work. Yes, we pray about these things, but prayer and acting like, well, at some point in time, God's going to snap his fingers and this is going to go away. My anxiety will go away. My depression will go away. That is not really how life rolls, okay? I guess God could do whatever God wanted to do, but he also always has us in a place of truth. And truth means, listen, you got to live the life that you're living, okay? And so this is so much about the action, the doing. And so when you come in and you're starting to feel that anxiety or depression or anger, whatever it is, your decision to go beyond prayer and take it into the plan. What do I do? And hun, this kind of reminds me of like with your mom, right? Like she had to get some things in order. She had to take action. She made priorities in terms of, I'm not going to worry about this as much. I'm not going to spend as much time doing these kinds of things because, well, one, it just didn't produce the fruit that it needed to, but, her time was precious.
Yeah. My mom was a fighter, and she did not accept that year diagnosis sitting on her hands. She was going to fight. And so she did chemotherapy and radiation until that no longer worked. And then she went into a research trial that really extended her quality of life and her quantity of life by years. And I believe that God really used her in that research to really help the research doctors kind of learn. I remember one of the research doctors telling my mom, like, we may never find a cure for cancer, but we can turn it into from a terminal illness to a chronic one. And so we can maybe just keep cancer at bay.
Right, a treatable illness.
And so for 5 years, she would fly up every 3 weeks from Florida to Kentucky, because they had a Florida home and a Kentucky home, and the research was only being done in the greater Cincinnati area. And so she would do that every 3 weeks, and I'm like, Mom, isn't that exhausting? And she's like, it's keeping me alive. Yeah. And she also wanted to live life with my dad down in Florida and the sun and the warmth, which I don't blame her, but she did not stop living life.
Yeah, she was taking action. So that kind of rolls us into, okay, so let's get really active in what we're going to do. And so these are 4 steps that we want to hand you guys. And so feel free to get a piece of paper and a pencil because, again, there's nothing new under the sun. But sometimes if you just put it together and you think about it and you have to look at it, it becomes real to you, okay? Yeah. You kind of go, oh, yeah, this is what I need to do. So the very first step is, and this sounds kind of cliche, getting your priorities right, getting right with God.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think that was something that we saw with your mom, where she did not, as soon as she heard the news, did not invite everybody in the world on Facebook. In fact, she just do not even put this garbage out.
She'd probably be bothered that we're even talking about this now.
Yeah, because the first thing she did is she got with Dad, her husband, and said, okay, like, what do we want to do, right? And they developed a plan together. So she got the priorities right, okay? So in your case, rather than just airing out all of your garbage or your news, good or bad, how about let's bring it in first and let's talk about who it involves and what you can begin to do in terms of priorities. Right now, maybe the priority of getting a new job is not as important as taking care of our kids, whatever it is, all right? Just an example of you working through that.
Yeah. When you prioritize, and we believe God is number one, he belongs on the throne, he belongs number one priority, and then your spouse, and then your children. We've said that probably in every other show we've ever done. But sometimes when we're kind of drifting and we're falling off course, we will, in a life of regrets that we're going to have a ton of, we start to kind of get into ourselves, like what makes me happy? What do I need? And we kind of lose that priority of God being first. And as a matter of fact, I've had clients who literally throw God out the window because they know God would not be pleased with the choices and decisions and direction that they're going in. And we're just saying, stop the drift and reprioritize. Set your priorities in the right way that's going to give you that life of no regrets.
Yeah, hon, I like what you're saying there because, there's more than a few songs about living like today's your last day, and the whole idea there is being very careful. You do want to live like each day is your last day, but what does that mean? Does that mean you're all going to be about you, or are you going to live like it's your last day in your service to God? So it could be like, I find out this is my last day, so I'm just going to be drunk and happy and silly and crazy for the 24 hours that I have. Or am I going to go out and work relationships or say thanks and give gratitude? But that's a choice that people get to make.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing. I'm just thinking
You're laughing at me, aren't you?
I'm just thinking of you. If you only had 24 hours, I can see you wanting me to go buy one of those big jug M&Ms like we've had on our show before. And like you just like, it's my last day.
No, that would, see, like I'm bad, but I'm not that bad. I probably would say I have 24 hours. If it's not sunny where I'm at, I'm going to go find sunshine and I'm going to go ride a bike and then I'm going to go talk to all relatives and friends and say,
does the bike,
thanks,
hang on,
see you later.
Does the bike go before the relationships, or does it are you
well
riding the bike first?
I'll start in the morning while everybody's sleeping and I'm going to get that part done.
Oh gosh, we're getting our priorities straight. So work-life balance, are you spending so much time at the office that when your wife walks out the door, you're going to have regrets that you didn't reprioritize your family above your work? Are you putting so much time and energy, and this happens with moms, into the kids because they're the squeaky wheels, they're the ones that need you to change them and bathe them, that your spouse doesn't feel like the priority? I've had that being said in couples all the time. So we've got to make sure, if we want a life of no regrets, we keep things in the right priority.
Yeah. And so let's go back and re-add the prayer part. Okay. But this time, not a prayer of God, take this away, but a prayer for an open mind and heart for understanding, a prayer for patience and peace, a prayer for the idea of, Lord, what can I learn from this to take it in? All right. And the reason why we ask for that is because sometimes we have to settle our mind, and through settling our mind, we can actually find some peace and then actually begin to think the pathway through some of this.
Yeah.
Right.
So if you're not okay, get some help for you. Don't stay stuck in the yuck. Okay. Because that's just going to live a life of regrets.
Yeah.
Especially the anger, the resentment.
So that was step 2.
That was step 2, right? If you're not okay, if you can't lay your head down at night and say, I'm okay, then get some help for you. Okay. Don't stay stuck in the yuck.
Yeah. All right. Step 3. Step 3 is when you start to step a little bit outside of yourself and whoever this could involve and talk about, are we okay? Is the marriage okay? Is the family okay? Or even the friendships? Like this, you talked about the hierarchy of relationship, God, spouse, family, and so on. But are we okay? Like, we've talked in many shows about the core being you, and then your inner circle, and then your next ring of influence, and then your third ring of influence. And, at some point when things get really intense in life, like what's important, are you good with your inner circle? Are we okay? because those are the people we talk about legacy building. That's where the legacy comes from right there, that inner group. If you're great with all the people in the third concentric ring, but the people right next to you, you don't even have that relationship, the legacy is going to be much more difficult to live on in your family.
Yeah, but we have clients who have unhealthy people in their inner circle. And so they have kind of take on the persona of whatever that is, whether it be addiction, whether it be mental illness. And so it's tainting their life of no regrets because they're picking up that person's garbage. They're dealing and making that their own. And we're just saying, try to separate what is your responsibility and what's not. Because there's some people who are living a very reckless life that's going to have a lot of regrets. And so I don't want that to be your regret. Okay. And so please don't take that on as being your own. Get some help for you and then prioritize those inner circle of relationships. And if you see something unhealthy in that, get some help for them.
Yeah. So as we start to wrap things up, mistakes and bad events are happening all the time in all of our lives. The idea here is, well, how do I actually get through without regrets? In other words, I think of regret as resentment. Like I resent that happened.
Yep. Bitterness.
And, there are going to be things, there are tragedies that happen, and maybe it's a tragedy at your fingertips. Maybe there was something that you were ADHD in your mind and you didn't do something and somebody got hurt because you missed something. All right. And somebody gets hurt and now you're living with that. Well, that's a regret, right? Like, I wish that I could relive that moment. But if that moment now defines and holds us back, if it paralyzes us, that's not a healthy way to live. So even in great tragedy, we can think of tragedies that have been throughout lives. Yeah. And the question might be, okay, what am I going to do with this? What am I going to do with this? How can I turn it into something better? And so to give you the example of how we see people do that all the time, there is not a day that goes by that Lynn and I don't see and deal with people in divorce, abuse, addiction. And the people who actually thrive and come through it take that regretful day or action or moment and they turn it into almost like a power source where they say, because of this, I now can go out and talk to people about divorce. Yep. I can go talk to people about addiction. I can help avoid abuse in relationships because I have an eye to spot it. Okay. Yeah. And so now I'm taking that regretful action and I've learned from it and I'm now moving it into a positive. So again, this is our choice.
Yeah.
This is our choice.
That was our show last week. That's exactly what Josh did. And so if you, again, didn't watch that show, so let's review, because I think we may have not gone to number 4. So let's review the 4 steps. So number 1 is prioritize relationships, and that's God, spouse, children. Okay. So make sure that you get your priorities in the right order. Okay. I'm sure you've heard that before. And if you're not living a life of no regrets, you're probably hearing that so much you're sick of it, but it's true. Like, get things in order. 2 is to really evaluate yourself and what's your responsibility. If you're not okay, get some help. Maybe you are dealing with an abusive past or an unforgiveness that you have holding on in your heart, a grudge. So get some help for you. Don't stay stuck in the yuck. And then number 3 is look around you in your inner circle. Are we okay? And if they're not, if maybe someone else has issues, if maybe there's an addiction issue that you've turned a blind eye to, that you get help for that relationship and maybe ask them to get some help. So that would be step 3. And then 4, hun, is to really be intentional, super intentional about surrounding yourself with healthy people. Healthy people who will help you get that life of no regrets, that aren't going to wallow in the mud with you, who are not going to sit there and drink a beer with you until you're drunk because that would make you feel better. We don't need those kind of people around us. We need people who are going to tell us not what we want to hear, but we need to hear.
Yeah. So those are some great points, and hopefully they spark a little thought in you about, okay, I have been struggling with this decision I made or this action that took place in my life. And we all have those. So, you only get a little bit of time to beat yourself up. It's kind of the way I approach that. It's like, okay, so
little pity party for a day, and then.
But then we have to do something with it. And if you stay in the point of beating yourself up and never working through the forgiveness of yourself, how are you going to go and be able to do life with others?
Yeah. So, you may not get the wake-up call that my mom did 6 years ago, but, hon, none of us are guaranteed till tomorrow. This may be our last show. And God forbid something happened to us, but honestly, I want to look at my spouse and my family and look in the mirror and be able to say, I have lived a life of no regrets. And we want that same for you.
All right. So again, if we can help you out, if the challenges, struggles, anything like that that's going on in your life, if we can be of help, then please reach out to us. Again, our office number is 812-576-7625. If you just need to talk and figure out like what's a plan forward, we do that all the time. Like, maybe we're not the right fit, but maybe we can refer and get you the help that you need. So part of our challenge this week is for you to take the time to look at things that are either full-blown regrets in your life or things that are potentially bubbling up to become one. And let's do something about that today, all right? Let's stop pushing it down the road, because it becomes this cancer that feeds into every other part of your life, other relationships, your energy level, your health, all these things. So your challenge this week is to actually assess some of this, and let's move forward with these steps that Lynn and I just gave you.
Yeah, just like you said at the top of the show, hon, we're not talking about a perfect life. We don't have it all together, and we don't get it all right.
The good Lord knows that.
We don't get it all right. We make a lot of mistakes. But if we can look at those mistakes and say, okay, God, what can I learn from it? How can I be better tomorrow because of it? And not wallow in the self-pity or the unforgiveness or whatever it is, then God can use it. I say it all the time. God can bring beauty out of ashes. And so God's the promises of his word. That's what I trust in and believe in. And we believe at Rock Solid Families to be the case.
All right. So very good. We want to thank our sponsors. We want to thank Maxwell Construction and Casey's Outdoor Solutions for, again, being sponsors of the Rock Solid Radio Show. Again, please do us a favor, share our show, give us the 5-star ratings, boost up the work on the search engine so that people can find what we are doing here. I'll throw a question out. Do you guys think, you can respond to us, do you think we should drop the Rock Solid Radio because we're no longer a radio show and maybe add instead Rock Solid Marriage and Family or something along that line? So Linda and I have been talking about that, because sometimes if you just do a search for something on marriage and family, Rock Solid Radio, there's nothing in there. So give us a little input.
Maybe there's another catchy name.
Oh, Lordy. Now that's going to open up the door.
The whole God-shaped hole thing. We didn't like my catchiness, but
God-shaped radios or something like that.
So, we'd love to hear your input on that.
Yeah. All right. So why don't you sign us off, hon, and let's get out of here.
Yes. Thank you so much for listening to Rock Solid Radio, or whatever it's going to be called. Building a stronger community, one family at a time. Make it a great day.
Rock Solid Radio wants to thank Casey's Outdoor Solutions. Casey's is a premier garden center and gift shop located in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. They offer a wide selection of high-quality plants, landscaping materials, and home decor. They do amazing high-quality work and can help you transform your indoor and outdoor living spaces into something beautiful. So stop by Casey's Outdoor Solutions today and let them know you appreciate their support for Rock Solid Radio. Visit Casey's today at 21481 State Line Road, Lawrenceburg, Indiana.